What if I told you that one of the NFL's most legendary teams wasn't just good, but seemed to be operating on a destiny beyond comprehension? Could a football team's fate be written in the stars, not just in playbooks? Because on that glorious, unforgettable February night in 2022, when the confetti cannons erupted over the Los Angeles Rams inside their breathtaking SoFi Stadium, and Matthew Stafford hoisted the gleaming Lombardi Trophy high above his head, it wasn't merely a Super Bowl victory. It was the thunderous, spine-tingling climax of an almost mythical saga, a sensational prophecy fulfilled, a journey that had defied every expectation and come full circle in the most audacious, spectacular fashion imaginable. It was the moment the Rams, after decades of incredible twists and turns, finally, emphatically, reclaimed their rightful, dazzling throne in the heart of Hollywood. But how did this cinematic masterpiece, this unbelievable journey, even begin? How did a franchise manage to not just survive, but thrive across eras, cities, and complete a return to glory that felt almost preordained? The Hollywood Genesis and Fearless Trailblazers. To understand the Rams' incredible narrative, we have to rewind, way back to their very first Hollywood debut. Picture this, it's 1946. World War II is over, and a nation is eager for entertainment, for heroes. And there, emerging from the smoky industrial grid of Cleveland, Ohio, the newly relocated Los Angeles Rams burst onto the scene, not just as a football team, but as a cultural phenomenon. They weren't just bringing gridiron action, they were shattering barriers. In a move that truly defined their pioneering spirit and set a precedent for decades of innovation, the Rams, in a stunning display of moral courage and foresight, signed Kenny Washington and Woody Strode in 1946, making them the first NFL team to break the league's color barrier a full year before Jackie Robinson famously integrated Major League Baseball. Think about that. The Rams weren't just playing football, they were writing history, challenging the status quo, and embodying the very essence of California dreaming right from the start. Their early years in Los Angeles were nothing short of electrifying. The Coliseum, a grand arena steeped in Olympic history, became their kingdom. They were the original showmen, the innovators. It was the Rams who pioneered the use of the helmet logo in 1948, transforming a utilitarian piece of equipment into a powerful brand statement, a visual roar that immediately captivated fans. Their dazzling offense, often led by legendary quarterbacks like Bob Waterfield and Norm Van Brocklin, lit up scoreboards with a flair that felt inherently Californian. They were throwing bombs downfield when other teams were still running the triple option. This wasn't just football, it was entertainment, a precursor to the greatest show on turf that would explode decades later. And then came the Fearsome Foursome, Deacon Jones, Merlin Olsen, Rosie Greer, and Lamar Lundy. A defensive line so dominant, so terrifying, they became the stuff of legend. Their relentless pressure, their sheer physical dominance, redefined defensive football. Deacon Jones, with his revolutionary head-slap, pass-rush technique, literally changed the game, forcing the NFL to implement rules just to contain his savagery. These were giants, not just in stature, but in impact, laying down a foundational legacy of toughness and flair. They captured the hearts of a burgeoning city, building a deep, passionate fanbase that would echo through generations. The Rams were the darlings of Hollywood, synonymous with glamour, grit, and groundbreaking play. They were more than a team, they were a movement, carving out an identity that was both fiercely competitive and undeniably stylish. But even Hollywood dreams have their shifting sands. As the decades turned, the franchise, while still competitive, found itself at a crossroads. The magic of the Coliseum began to fade, giving way to the anonymity of Anaheim in the late 1970s. While they still had moments of brilliance, including a Super Bowl XIV appearance, the consistent, dazzling dominance of their early days seemed to elude them. The 1980s and early 90s saw flashes of brilliance with players like Eric Dickerson, but also increasing struggles to maintain a consistent identity and fan base amidst a crowded Southern California sports landscape. The once unbreakable bond with Los Angeles began to fray, weakened by missed opportunities, aging facilities, and a perception that the team was losing its luster. It was a slow, painful drift, setting the stage for one of the most unexpected chapters in NFL history. The idea of the Rams ever leaving Los Angeles, the city they had so dramatically imprinted with their spirit, once seemed unthinkable. Yet, as the calendar turned toward the mid-90s, the unthinkable became an increasingly stark reality, paving the way for a dramatic geographical pivot. The St. Louis Revelation, the greatest show on turf. And just like that, in 1995, after nearly 5 decades in California, the Los Angeles Rams were no more. They packed up their storied history, their iconic horns, and their dreams, moving eastward to the heartland, to St. Louis, Missouri. It was a seismic shift, met with a mix of heartbreak in LA and overwhelming, joyous relief in St. Louis, a city desperate for an NFL team. For years, the franchise struggled, floundering in mediocrity, trying to find its footing in a new home. But then, something truly extraordinary happened, a Cinderella story so unbelievable, it sounds like it was ripped straight from a Hollywood script. It was 1999. The St. Louis Rams were entering the season with a new head coach, Dick Vermeil, and a veteran quarterback, Trent Green. Expectations were modest, to say the least. Then, in a cruel twist of fate, Green suffered a season-ending injury in the preseason. Panic? Despair? Not for this team. Instead, a virtually unknown, undrafted quarterback from the Arena Football League, who had been stocking grocery shelves just a few years prior, stepped up. His name was Kurt Warner. And what unfolded next was arguably the most explosive, dynamic, and downright fun offensive spectacle the NFL had ever witnessed, the greatest show on turf. This wasn't just a football team, it was an artistic expression of speed, precision, and audacious play calling. With Warner at the helm, slinging passes to a triumvirate of electrifying receivers, Isaac Bruce, Torrey Holt, and Zahir Hakim, and Marshall Faulk redefining the dual-threat running back position, the Rams became an unstoppable force. They averaged an astonishing 32.9 points per game, shredding defenses with a breathtaking rhythm and flair that nobody could counter. Every snap felt like an impending highlight reel. Opposing coaches watched in helpless awe as their meticulously planned defensive schemes disintegrated under the Rams' relentless onslaught. They didn't just beat teams, they dismantled them, leaving a trail of bewildered opponents in their wake. Their Super Bowl 34 triumph over the Tennessee Titans, a nail-biting, goal-line stand for the ages, cemented their legendary status. This team wasn't just great, it was iconic, a vivid, rare, and intriguing fact that highlights their sheer offensive dominance. The Rams still hold the record for the most total yardage gained in a single Super Bowl game, racking up an astounding 523 yards in that epic contest. The greatest show on turf era wasn't just a flash in the pan. They continued their offensive dominance, returning to the Super Bowl in 2001, though falling short against the New England Patriots in Tom Brady's first championship. But the spark, the sheer magic of that period, captivated an entire city and a generation of football fans. St. Louis embraced them with an intensity that rivaled any major market. For 2 decades, the Rams were St. Louis's team, their identity intertwined with the spirit of the gateway city. However, as all great shows must eventually dim, the greatest show on turf eventually faded. Injuries mounted, key players retired, and the magic became harder to recapture. The franchise entered a prolonged period of struggle, marred by losing seasons and coaching changes. The once bright stadium grew quieter, the palpable excitement of the Super Bowl years slowly replaced by frustration. The city's unwavering support began to wane under the weight of consistent defeat. It was a stark contrast to their early St. Louis glory, and the whispers, faint at first, then growing louder, began to circulate. Could history repeat itself? Could the Rams, a franchise that had already relocated once, be on the move again? The very idea was unthinkable to the passionate fans of St. Louis, who had celebrated their highest highs. Yet, the forces of destiny, or perhaps just corporate ambition, were already at play, sketching out the next, unprecedented chapter in the Rams' incredible journey. The Hollywood homecoming, a prophecy fulfilled. And then, after 21 years, 2 decades of building a new identity, forging new heroes, and capturing a Super Bowl in the heartland, the impossible happened. The whispers turned into roars, the rumors into stark reality. In 2016, the St. Louis Rams were gone, vanishing back into the bright lights of Los Angeles, almost as if an ancient decree had called them home. It was a controversial, heartbreaking, and deeply polarizing move that left St. Louis feeling betrayed, and the NFL landscape in absolute shock. But for Los Angeles, it was a prodigal son's return, a triumphant homecoming for a franchise that, despite its long absence, still held a unique place in the city's sporting soul. The return wasn't just a geographical shift, it was a grand statement. The Rams didn't just come back, they came back to build a monument. The construction of the astounding SoFi Stadium, a multi-billion-dollar architectural marvel, was a clear signal: the Rams were back, and they were here to dominate. This wasn't just a team returning, it was a legacy being resurrected, given a glittering new stage. They drafted a promising young quarterback in Jared Goff and made a groundbreaking hire in Sean McVay, a brilliant offensive mind who, at just 30 years old, became the youngest head coach in modern NFL history. The transformation was immediate, exhilarating. McVay's innovative schemes, combined with a roster filled with dynamic talent like Aaron Donald, Todd Gurley, and Cooper Kupp, immediately reignited the team's spark. The Rams became a high-flying, explosive unit once again, embodying the flair that had defined their earliest days in LA and their greatest show on turf peak in St. Louis. They were a modern, exciting brand of football that captivated the reborn fanbase. They marched to Super Bowl 53 in 2019, falling just short against Tom Brady and the Patriots, but the message was clear: the Rams were contenders, and they were here to stay. But destiny, as it often does, had a final, dramatic act in mind. In a bold, high-stakes move that sent shockwaves across the league, the Rams traded for veteran quarterback Matthew Stafford in 2021. It was a gamble, a clear declaration of all-in for a Super Bowl. And what a payoff it was. With Stafford's veteran leadership, Cooper Kupp's historic receiving Triple Crown season, and the relentless, game-wrecking presence of Aaron Donald on defense, the Rams surged through the playoffs. Their journey culminated in Super Bowl 56, played in their very own, magnificent SoFi Stadium. That game, against the Cincinnati Bengals, was a testament to their resilience, their innovation, and their sheer will to win. It was a back-and-forth battle, filled with incredible plays and nerve-wracking moments. But in the final, dramatic minutes, with the game on the line, Stafford delivered, Kupp made incredible catches, and Aaron Donald, the defensive superstar, simply took over, sealing the victory. The confetti, the cheers, the sheer, unadulterated joy, it wasn't just a Super Bowl win. It was the absolute, triumphant, emotional crescendo of a franchise's incredible odyssey. It was the Rams, winning the Super Bowl at home, in the city where they began their storied journey. It was a Hollywood ending, not just for a season, but for a destiny that felt years in the making. The unstoppable force of reinvention. This wasn't just a team moving, winning, and moving again. This was a franchise proving itself to be an almost unstoppable force of reinvention. From the trailblazing days of the 1940s, shattering racial barriers and designing the first helmet logo, to the Fearsome Foursome dominating the gridiron, to the unprecedented offensive explosion of the greatest show on turf, and finally, to their stunning, meticulously planned return to Hollywood, crowned with a Super Bowl victory in their own stadium, the Rams have consistently demonstrated an uncanny ability to adapt, innovate, and thrive. They've navigated profound geographical shifts not once, but twice, transforming their identity while somehow retaining an underlying essence of flair and competitive drive. They've reinvented their entire offensive philosophy multiple times, moving from early passing pioneers to ground-and-pound powerhouses, then to a revolutionary aerial attack, and back to a modern, balanced, high-octane offense. Their defensive units have been legendary across generations, from the Fearsome Foursome to the disruptive talents of Aaron Donald. They've not just survived the cutthroat world of the NFL, they've carved out an enduring legacy as one of its most dynamic and versatile dynasties. Every era, every city, every championship, adds another layer to their incredible story. They've been the darlings, the underdogs, the champions, and the controversial movers. But through it all, they've maintained a reputation for pushing boundaries, for captivating audiences, and for achieving the seemingly impossible. They are a living testament to the idea that some destinies, some legacies, are simply too powerful to be contained by geography or era. They transcend the ordinary, continually proving that true greatness finds a way, no matter the challenges or the setting. So, consider this incredible, almost supernatural journey. A team founded in Cleveland, then a trailblazer in Los Angeles, an offensive phenomenon in St. Louis, and finally, a triumphant return to Hollywood glory. It's a journey spanning over 75 years, multiple cities, and countless iconic moments. But here's the real kicker, the mind-blowing fact that elevates their entire saga from remarkable to utterly unprecedented. The Los Angeles Rams are the only NFL franchise in history to win a championship in 3 different metropolitan areas.